Oh, all right. What's up, guys? It's another episode of Off the Post. I'm your host, DJ Red Cat Fred Durst, and it looks like Luke's wearing a hat today, so maybe he has a cool nickname for himself. Ah, yes. As you can see, we have our usual, a few of our usual panels, and we have one special guest for you, and she'll tell her, tell you guys who she is. As you know, if you want to say anything to us, you can use the hashtag WolfSo talk on Twitter, or you can post something on Facebook or Tumblr, and I'll get the message and I'll relay it back to you. If you had the chance yesterday, we tried something new that was suggested to us, a discussion on Saturday night between games. That went pretty well. A lot of people joined in, so I thank you all that did join in on that. Let's actually get down and talk to some of our panelists. Let's start with you, Jen. How have you been doing lately?
I'm good. Yeah, just hanging out. Nothing too interesting.
How's the car doing? I'm always checking up on Irene.
Oh, Irene's good. Irene's good. We've been taking a lot of road trips lately. We're going to Chicago for the Spirit game in a couple of weeks here, so I got to get her prepped and ready for that.
Big road trip for Irene. Hopefully she's all ready to go. What's up, Luke? After last week, I'm shocked you returned.
Before we get into that, I just want to say to Jen, nothing interesting. You had a VIP ticket for the game yesterday. I'm gonna say that's pretty interesting.
Okay, yeah, that was pretty interesting. I got to give Tobin Heath a birthday present. That was pretty cool. I can't lie about that one.
Okay, awesome.
So, Luke, you've been doing pretty good. Nothing new.
No, I've been doing terrible now that you ask, because my teams are losing, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm your jinx right there. That's my fault. I'll take 100% blame for it.
It's very, very personally.
I understand, but I'm the same way, though. And Stephanie, introduce yourself. Tell them what you do, what you're a part of, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I'm Steph. I do a podcast with my friend Gab. It's called Two Drunk Fans, and I write about women's soccer for the Bent Musket, which is an SB Nation blog. And I cover the Breakers and the national team mostly.
Nice, nice. And you were suggested to me from actually one of my friends, Beth Kent. She was like, yeah, you got to get her on. She's real cool, and she knows all her stuff. So we're glad to actually have you on.
Beth was actually present at the very first recording of Two Drunk Fans. We were at a game in Frisco together, and she was in the same bar with us. So she was.
I like how. What's that? What's that, Luke?
I said small world.
Jeez, man. Beth gets around traveling, too. I wonder what her frequent flyer miles are like right now. And I also like how the podcast was started actually in a bar, and it's called Two Drunk Fans, so that's pretty cool, too. All right, guys. Well, other than all that stuff. Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to tell you what's happening because of the World Cup. Yes, yes, yes. So much stuff. This Wednesday, we're having a show where it's going to be a lot of the off the post around, what is it called now? Across the Pond. That's what the name that we decided for it. Yep. So, Luke, you might want to check that out sometime because it's all our Across the Ponders are going to be on, and they're going to talk about their favorite World Cup teams, such as France, Sweden. Actually, we're going to talk about America. And then the Canadian, our Canadian panelist, she's actually going to be on with people for the first time, so I want to see how this happens. It's going to be kind of funny. Also, Sunday, I think it is. Yeah, Sunday we're going to have a show, and then it's almost going to be a preview show, and then a review show for every World Cup game. So that will give you an understanding of that. We'll try to promote it. We'll definitely tell you guys what's going to happen and when the show is going to be. Just look out for it on Twitter or on Facebook or something, or just subscribe because it'll be much easier for you to catch the show. All right, guys, what do you want to talk about first? U.S. Women's National Team review? Sounds good? Yeah? Yeah? All right. Well, as always, we're going to just start off talking about the lineup because that's always the most interesting thing, and usually the fans argue about that for the first 30 minutes on Twitter, and then they love it at the end, but I'm not too sure they love this one at the end. Jen, what did you think of the starting lineup?
It was all right. I don't know. I've been, for some reason, Holiday has seemed really off to me lately. I don't know what, she just seems to be taking extra touches where she doesn't need to be taking extra touches. It's been a little shaky in the midfield for me lately, so I might do some change up in the midfield. I know Pino wasn't available to play yesterday, so we didn't really have her as an option, but I think I might have started Tobin Heath instead of using her as a second half sub, and started it that way, because once she entered the game, she seemed to bring a lot of pace. I mean, she kept pushing forward, making chances happen down there. So I think I would have started her and seen how that would have changed up the lineup a little bit. But other than that, I mean, the back four were pretty solid. I thought it was weird that Ellis started Abby. She seems to be a second half sub lately, just to kind of raise team morale. So I thought it was interesting that she started. But other than that, I mean, the lineup was pretty good. They at least held their own. So I thought it was a fair starting lineup. I would have made those couple of changes though.
Luke, what did you think?
I mean, I completely agree with Jen. My thinking on Abby is if you're going to start her, you should start wingers. You should start people like Heo and Tobin Heath and Pino, if they're available, to get out wide and then be able to cross the ball in. All we were doing was launching the ball sort of directly downfield towards Abby, which I do not think is effective in any way. So it was odd to me, too, to have Abby in there and then not build the team structure around that. And I also completely agree with Jen that we were, and maybe this is just with hindsight, but we were missing a sort of creative spark in the midfield with no Pino, no Heath. Morgan Bryan, Carly Lloyd, Lauren Holiday lately have all kind of been the same kind of like get the ball, face your own goal, kick it back, get the ball, pass it sideways. There's not a lot of creativity going on. Carly had a few moments, but I agree with Cheney. Cheney Holiday, she was, I don't know, on dope or something. She was slow yesterday, sleepwalking.
Stephanie, what did you think of the starting lineup?
I agree that Holiday has looked off. Her distribution hasn't been super great. Her set pieces haven't been super great. Bill Ellis doesn't know what the heck to do with Kristen Press. Yep. She's really useful. She's really talented, so she sticks her in there and then puts her in, sticks her where she does well, but it's not maximizing her potential.
Right,
Press she's like a pure striker. And if you have Wambach in there, I really agree with Luke. If you have Abby Wambach in there, her scoring is dependent almost entirely on her service.
Yep.
How often does she get the ball face up and then shoot on goal with her feet? Never.
Right.
Maybe 10, 15% of the time. So why not? What does Jill Ellis have against Heather O'Reilly? Did Heather, insult her mom? What's going on?
Well, that's one thing I was saying to someone yesterday. I was just like, why has she been in the doghouse since day one with Jill Ellis? It's like she doesn't even play her, and she would be perfect for what they're needing right now out there. And it's just like she won't even give her a chance. And then every time she does sub her in, she does look pretty decent. She'll sub in Tobin Heath, someone else who's been in the doghouse. She'll look pretty good and decent out there. And it's just like, well, you need this type of player out there, but you just don't seem to like that type of player for some reason. And it's been weird to me watching that the whole time. But as for the lineup, for me, I kind of expected it, to be honest, because as you know, no matter what happens with the lineup, if someone goes out on that left side, then it should be a Heath or O'Reilly playing there, or left or right side, because, well, Hale's more right, but, left side, she's going to put Press over there, even though Press shouldn't be there, and she's not going to get the most out of her. I knew she'd probably throw Sid back out there to continue to build on her confidence. I mean, Abby seems like she can't move Abby to save her life or out of anywhere or do what she wants with her, but I kind of expect that lineup, and then after what Morgan Bryan did, because she had I guess she liked her game last week. I knew she was going to play her again on that right side. But as you were saying, Luke, they all play the same way. They'll just turn, pass one way, pass it back. Oh, nothing's there. Let's lob it forward and see if Abby can get on it, and she never does. And then the forwards just get no service anyway. But we can continue forward, and we'll get more to talk about our overall view of the game. But let's just look at the first half. Let's start with you, Stephanie. What was your view of the first half of how we played?
I mean, it wasn't great.
Well,
I personally think I like Kling as a person, but I think she's a liability.
Yeah.
I think at some point during the World Cup, she's going to get torched on that side, and somebody, either positionally or she's just going to get beat on speed, and someone's going to dart in and make us pay. I mean, she could score some crazy goal from 30 yards out, but I think it's more likely she's going to cost us on an offensive attack, and yeah.
No, that's fine. You're actually saying what a lot of people were saying on the discussion yesterday. A lot of people, there was a majority of people that were against her actually playing, because they keep saying when we get up against a stronger team, she's just going to get beaten, and they're going to expose her for what she is. Like, she's not bad, but it's not good enough for what we're going to face going up against the rest of the world. But Luke, what was your opinion of the game? First half, my mistake.
You know, there were flashes when I thought that we were finally going to could have put some cohesive moves together. At one point, it looked like Carly was going to kind of take hold of the game, and she made a couple of those runs she does where it looks like she's about to lose control, and then she just touches it past the defender, and then passes it out wide or keeps going. And I don't remember if it was the first half where we had the actual one real chance where Sid shot it straight at the keeper. Was that the first or the second? I don't remember. Anyway, I mean, it was pretty disappointing stuff. That they came out looking flat and they got and tired, and they just kept in that vein, really. I kind of agree that I like to see Kelly O'Hara get a starting shot for a change. That's another player who hasn't seen any minutes at all under Jill Ellis, and I'm not really sure why. Kling and Kalupny are sort of both solid but slower, whereas Kelly O'Hara brings in a little more speed on the left wing. So maybe pair her on the left with Kriegs on the right. I thought Krieger had a poor game, to be honest, and I thought Mo Bryan had the worst game I've seen her play yet for the U.S., honestly.
I didn't even remember her out there, to be honest.
Tons of times, which is something she never does.
Yeah, it was a rough game for her, I thought. Jennifer, what did you think of the game, first half?
I kind of agree with what everyone said. The one thing I would mention that kind of contradicts a little bit what Luke said. Krieger did have a rough game, but at the same point, like, I feel like half of our service to the forwards in the first half came from Allie Krieger, and that was the weirdest thing to me. I was at that game, so I was in the stands, and I'm watching Kriegs, who, granted, she is an attacking defender, but I'm watching her shoot the ball up forward because no one else was, and that was kind of sad for me to have to sit there and watch that and just watch our speed of play, because it was faster than our last game, I think, but it wasn't where it needed to be. I was actually really impressed with Korea. I mean, we were talking about this a little while ago before we came on live, that Korea just they looked impressive as far as their speed of play, as far as their connections, and we kind of fell apart in the face of that, and that was disappointing to watch. But again, like I said earlier, I think a lot of it is just we have players that are already hurt. We couldn't use Morgan or Pino, and I think we're trying to keep our players from getting hurt with the World Cup right around the corner. So I think that did play a lot into it.
I think that game at first, when we saw first, like, for me, when I saw South Korea's first when they had the ball and they started moving forward, it kind of threw me back. I was like, whoa, I didn't expect them to look this good. Like, it looked good, even though they didn't really get any shots on goal or anything, but just going forward a bit, you're like, yo, they're a couple of players away, and they might be really deadly, the South Korea team. They kind of scared me a couple of times, because I thought if all it had to take was maybe one pass, maybe, I would say, each time for South Korea. If it came off, they'd have been right in on goal, and it would have been a scary thing for our defense. So it's like, and I always look at teams like this and I say, well, imagine if that's France or some other team that actually can connect those passes or whatever, and will hold more possession than South Korea. I don't know, that first half really scared me a lot, just seeing how we were overall as a team, and then just going forward ourselves was just kind of a mess for most of the time. So a lot to work on, I guess we could say, but do we still have enough time to work on? Is the question. Second half, I guess I could start a little bit about this. I was happy when Heath got subbed in, as we were saying a bit earlier, because it looked like some stuff actually started to happen. Holiday, from the second half, I hate saying it, but I don't know if it's just playing that position. Maybe she wants to be farther forward or something, but because it hasn't been just this game or last couple games. It's been an extended period of time within that position of that holding mid has just been just horrendous. To be honest, it's horrendous. I hate to say it, but I mean, some of those passes were just going to nowhere. I think one of them went out of bounds completely. So I mean, it's just been rough for her. But Jen, let's get your thoughts on the second half.
Yeah, second half, I like the fact that we used all of our subs. It obviously didn't end in anything we didn't finish anything. You know, we didn't have any points on the board. But I think it was nice to see Jill Ellis kind of use her resources and get people in there and start to see a little bit of creative spark come onto the field that we were missing the entire first half. So it was nice to see that. And, you know, again, going back to speed of play, once we got Tobin in there, once we got Hayo in there, once we got a couple of those other players in there, the speed of play changed drastically, and we started to see chances come in not just from lobbing the ball forward, but from a tactical perspective, we started to see a couple of chances being made. Again, we couldn't finish any of them, unfortunately. I don't know what was going on there, if they're just having problems with connection or whatever. But, you know, despite that result, despite the draw at nothing, I think for some reason we always pull it together when it counts. You know, we did win the Algarve Cup, and that's something. There's something to be said there. So I think we will be able to pull it together. I just think, you know, at this point, there were a lot of factors going into this game yesterday, and, you know, the result is what it is. None of us are happy with it, but we'll pull it together.
Luke, what were your thoughts on the second half?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with how Jen summed it up. I mean, going back to press, as Stephanie was saying, you know, it's kind of disheartening to see such a talented player be utilized so wrongly. It seems that, you know, when I was sketching out the lineup for the team in advance of our talk today, I had 3 of the midfield names down, and I couldn't remember who the 4th midfielder was. And it took me about 5 minutes to remember that Kristen Press was actually even playing in the game. I mean, that was her impact for me in the game, was that, you know, I think she thrives on a bit of space to run in, not ball to the feet back to the goal so much, but which I saw her get knocked off the ball several times doing that. She needs a bit of space to run, to dribble, you know, to make these beautiful timed passes or to run onto the end of passes. And I have to say, she's not as strong in the tackle as, say, Alex Morgan is. So she gets knocked off the ball fairly easily when she's too close to her defender. She needs to have space. So sorry to focus on that for a bit, but it was frustrating because although she went to Stanford, I really like Press.
Stephanie, what were your thoughts on the second half?
I mean, you guys have said most of it. I'll just add this note. The United States, I thought it was cheap the way they started the second half, not waiting for Korea to get out of their huddle. I just thought that was, like, that's beneath you guys. It's a friendly, it's not the finals of the World Cup where you need to press for every friggin' advantage. Just be cool, guys. Just find your chill.
Dang, I didn't even notice that they did that. Now, that is kind of Bush League that they would even do something like that. Jeez.
I think they were just, like, I think they were embarrassed. Like, this is our send-off game. We're here to create hype. There's a big sellout crowd. They had that giant tifo. It was amazing. They wanted to give people a good show. And so they were like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But it wasn't cool.
Oh, jeez. Has this what it come to, U.S. Women's National Team fans? That's all I'm going to leave you with for that. But just overall performance, it was rough. I mean, what else can we say? There was points, as you were saying, Luke, that I was looking forward to Carly Lloyd to make that run and just kind of take over, and it looked like she was about to a couple of times. And I kept thinking, you know how we are usually. We've always find at least one goal so we can have something to take home about, and then the fans that really blow it out of proportion one way can say, oh, we scored in one, that's all that matters. And then the other ones can say, oh, we didn't score. I mean, you know, we scored a goal, but it was kind of cheap and late at the end, but we didn't have either. That was really like leaning towards all the fans that want to just kind of like pile on for the most part. But I'm guessing the feeling is most of the time that they'll turn it on, but a lot of times I'm starting to say with this team, it's a bit different because I remember someone said, oh, the 99ers, I think they lost the game before heading into the World Cup. I said, this team I think is a bit different, way different, but it's starting to look like a trend, a lot of things that are going on with this team, and I think that those trends aren't going to beat us, won't be in our favor when we go into the World Cup at the group stage. Guess we could look ahead to Australia. What do you think is going to happen with Australia, Luke? Just a little bit, since you're going to be on the preview show anyway.
I mean, as Jen said, yeah, the team does pull it together. I think they're a team that's aware. I can't really speak of a team as being an entity that it has its own awareness, but as a group of players, I think they're aware of when to peak and when not to, and so there's something true about the idea that it's a friendly. You don't necessarily have to exert, every sinew and every muscle and try your hardest. There's something to be said for the fact that there's kind of a rhythm that you're building up to the competition. So I'm not too worried about the World Cup with some of those things. Australia, for some reason, that they are individually incredibly talented team, but we seem to be able to handle them pretty well. Now, I remember last time it was because Solo had about 3 or 4 great saves against Havana. Was that the last one? Maybe the one before. So they're a team that's totally capable of scaring us, but unless they've done something different with their mentality, I don't see it being too much of a problem for us, to be honest.
Jen, what do you think going forward with Australia?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Luke. I think one thing that's going to be a huge difference between the match we saw yesterday with Korea and the match we're going to see against Australia is something else I mentioned earlier. Korea, kind of as impressive as they were, they seem to be delaying the game a lot, and the U.S. national team plays as a fast-paced team. I think that messed up our momentum. It kind of shifted our train of thought as a team, and that kind of screwed us up a little bit, whereas Australia, they're not going to do a whole lot of that game delaying. They're going to come at us. They're going to make Hope Solo make those saves. We've got Steph Catley back in D that's going to try to stop anything we've got coming forward. So I think the pace in that game is going to be a lot different, and I actually think that's going to work to our advantage because our team thrives in that kind of situation. So I kind of agree with Luke. They will challenge us, but I think we'll come out of that one on top.
And Stephanie, what do you think going ahead for Australia?
That'll be a fast game. That'll be one of those games where we see it could get faster than it normally would be because it's going to be on turf. So, yeah, Australia could hang in there for maybe 70, 75, and then I think because it's so fast, even though they're individually pretty tough as a team, I think they'll drop off. So I don't foresee it being a huge problem. I think it'll just be fast and fun to watch. They will probably put some shots on frame, though. They've got a decent amount of firepower. The question with Australia tends to be defending.
Mm.
Yeah, hopefully, I forgot all about that whole turf thing. I remember that debate was so big, and maybe I shouldn't have forgotten about it, but that will make it interesting, actually, just to see how the teams adjust to that for the most part. But I'm feeling like, yes, I think we're going to come out pretty fast, and maybe that idea that this is now the big show, this is the big stage, and we'll come out and win that game, hopefully. You hear the word hopefully still from me. We come out and win it, hopefully. But I really do seriously think that should be a game we should win. And actually, I really want us to win that game because that next game versus Sweden, that's going to be a real tough one in that group. But enough of that. We're going to talk about that all next week. That's going to be on Sunday about at 6:30. So Sunday, I think it's June 7th, correct? You'll get to hear us talk about all the World Cup stuff, the U.S. Women's National Team. Let's look at some NWSL action, shall we? Shall we, people? Looks like some people are already not happy to talk about this. I'm not. I'm not, to be honest with you, even though that was a good game. We played our best. But the teams we're going to start with first, Spirit versus Thorns. And it looks like we have 2 fans down there from the Spirit and the Thorns. Oh, yes. We are going to start with the Spirit fan first. Jen, this is your 10 minutes to talk about Lohman. Go for it.
All right, that's fair. She did have a really good game, actually. She created a lot of chances in that first half. So my shameless plugging of her this week is actually justified. No, I mean, she had a great game. Crystal Dunn had another great game. Every week I feel like we're talking about Crystal Dunn because she kind of messed up a little bit in the game last week, but other than that, she's been absolutely spot on. I think really the only player that I can really say made a mistake for the Spirit was Megan Oyster. Until they absolutely call that ball offsides, you have to treat it as if it's not. And that cost us that 1 goal, but we came back and managed to win regardless. My problem with that game, though, holy cow, the yellow cards. There were so many yellow cards. It was ridiculous. I think at some point the ref just got fed up what was going on and just started handing out cards. But I mean, I got to give it to Portland. They had a lot of guts throwing in everything they had into that last corner kick. That was horrifying to watch as a Spirit fan. Watching Betos come off the line and get in there, like I was like, oh man, this thing's gonna go in. It's gonna suck, but it didn't. So good job, Spirit. But I mean, the Spirit are undefeated at home this season, so it's. I can't say it was like super unexpected. But I also like to pretend that my team is going to win every match. So yeah, there's that too. So it was a good match, other than just the amount of yellow cards that were flying out everywhere.
All right, Luke, you can vent to me. I'm a shoulder for you to cry on. Go ahead.
You know, the word that was being used mostly on the Portland fans' message boards was listless. You know, just the team couldn't quite get it together, and especially in the second half when they were behind and didn't have that urgency that you really wanted until maybe the final few minutes. But that is always disappointing to see as a fan, you know, and that's partly what frustrated me about the U.S. performance yesterday was, you know, you want to see them look like they're giving everything, and I didn't necessarily feel that. Other criticisms, Paul Riley is very wedded to his, you know, 3 at the back formation, although it was maybe he was sort of playing 4 at the back yesterday. It was hard to see. If he is going to play 3 at the back every single game, and teams seem to have found out what to do against that, he needs to be able to be flexible and adjust. And that's something we haven't really seen from him. So, you know, Spirit, this is the second game in a row where the Spirit pressed really high and disrupted us at the back. That's what leads to Betos giving the ball away. You know, so Crystal Dunn can score, and that also is frustrating. We start to get the feeling that Paul Riley doesn't have a grip of like tactics, which is a little shocking coming from somebody who's been a coach for so many years. Ali Long at times was playing a kind of a defensive, holding midfield role. Which
I was just about to say that. It looked like she was so far back.
Idea for Ali Long, but nobody else does. Well, apparently, maybe Paul Riley does now, but it's not her best position at all. And also, one other thing, I don't know why Taylor Camo, who I really like, not just because she went to Cal, but she shouldn't be playing right back either. I mean, I get that we have injuries, but, you know, anyway, it was frustrating for me to watch that game.
Stephanie, what have you thought of Portland and Washington Spirit this year?
Well, let me ask Luke a question, because when we played Portland at home and beat them, sorry, Luke.
Historical fact.
I talked to Tom Durkin after the game, and he said straight up, Paul Riley is not adjusting to his opponents. He keeps playing that 3-6-1 or like that, like 3-2-4-1, and the players are good. So he just like kind of forces them to do that without adjusting. So do you think that's accurate?
I think that's completely accurate.
Yeah. So that's my impression of Portland right now. They haven't won in 5. I have a lot of Portland friends, including Gab. The buzz last night was like a couple of notches above disgruntled. That's the sense that I got. And I would agree with Luke. He doesn't seem this season anyway to have a grasp of the tactics he needs for this level. He also doesn't seem to be a good manager. I mean, how many stories did we hear out of Portland about players being forced into 2-a-days, you know, in between games, stuff like that, which is just nuts to me. So.
Yeah, I remember like this. The one thing though I did really pick up with that whole game was it, like you said, where Ali Long was playing at. Because I always look for her to be like their engine, so to speak, or to watch where she's at on the field. Because at first she was getting all those offside calls all of a sudden, and then he had her so far back. I was like, what is she playing? A CDM type of role now? And I was like, do you really want her back? And then it also seems like that shim, that long connection that we had early on in the year, I haven't seen it. I haven't really seen much of, I guess, Shim doing what she was doing early on lately, and I don't know if that's because of him or what he's doing, or just she's out of form or whatever. What would you consider it, Luke? Just is it more so where he has her at, or is it like her form just kind of took a nosedive?
Well, to go back to Long for a second, I kind of, it's funny. I think it was Haley last week on the show talked
Yeah.
about how the Dash said if we can focus first and foremost on Ali Long, that's how you stop the Thorns right now. And I wonder whether, as a sort of reaction to that, Riley thought that she should kind of be a little more hidden by playing a bit further back. But it didn't. It certainly didn't pay off, and I think that messes up her chemistry with Mana Shim too. And we're missing, like we were saying about the US, we're missing some creative spark in the middle there. We have a bunch of very good strivers like McCall Zaboni and Sinead Farley, and who's having a great season, but no one with real flair to maybe mix things up a bit and do something a little unexpected. Shim has that capability, I think, more than any of the others, but she gets a bit swamped sometimes. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not the coach, and I'm not as good a tactician as presumably Riley is, but something needs to happen. And let's give it to Jen to talk about the Spirit some more, because they won.
Yeah, that's true. Dunn was actually amazing. It seems like once again they try to make sure that everything they do goes right through her, and that's understandable because she's so amazing on the attack. And I guess this is Jen's time to shine because I agreed with her. I wrote down that I thought Lohman had played a great game in that attacking role. So there you go, Jen. You should be happy about Lohman, right? Yeah.
I'm always happy about Lohman. So hey.
Nice. So moving forward, let's talk about, I guess, the Reign versus Chicago Red Stars. This is a big game I think everyone was looking forward to. Both teams, initially when I watched this game, it seemed like they were just buzzing around the field back and forth early on. Stephanie, what have you thought of the Chicago Red Stars this season?
The Red Stars kind of surprised me. Not a lot. I thought they came out of the draft pretty well, so I mean I thought they would at least make a run towards being top of the middle of the table, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think they have surprised me a little bit. They're at the top now. They're not super clear. They're only 2 points clear of the Spirit, although they have a much better goal differential. I don't know how that's going to change once the World Cup is over. But that's a long time from now, and they could take points off of everybody from now till then and then come out with a mathematically unassailable lead. It could happen.
Yeah, it was with me and Jim were talking about it actually before the show. We were saying that Chicago Red Stars have been the best team, and I remember even saying that they were surprising me too, but we didn't. It's not a huge gap, but they've done better than expected, I could say. Jen, what have you thought of Chicago Red Stars or the Seattle Reign this year?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Chicago kind of surprised me a little bit. I think, for me, Chicago's defense was really awesome this past game. I think it was 13 shots that Seattle had, 7 were on goal, and Chicago just took care of that. And most teams, when you've got a team like Seattle coming at you with their kind of firepower, the defense normally crumbles for at least one of those, and it wasn't happening. Chicago held them. That being said, Ellie Reed with that header against Sofia Huerta, that was impressive. To be able to stand up to Sofia Huerta like that's impressive too. So I owe a lot of that game's draw to the defensive sides of both teams. But yeah, as far as Chicago's concerned, and Seattle, both of them have kind of surprised me. I expected Seattle to be a little bit higher at this point, and I expected Chicago to be a little bit lower at this point. So it's definitely, the table's not really what I thought it would be at this point in the season.
Yeah, Ellie Reed had a great game last game. Luke, what have you thought of that Chicago Red Stars Seattle game?
Yeah, I mean, Chicago really are impressive. I think of them, and this may be my blind spot, but I kind of think of them as a team of no names. A lot of under-the-radar, really strong players. They've lost several really big names to the World Cup squads, and yet they are as strong as any other team in the league, whereas the Reign have lost relatively few and have this incredible defense and this incredible midfield largely intact and have been quite disappointing so far, which is just the nature of the game, I guess. But I think one thing I've thought about this weekend's fixtures as a whole is the relative lack of scoring. And I think that was true last week too, maybe with one exception. So it seems to me that we're seeing that quality forwards are, as always, at a premium. You know, there are a lot of good defenders out there, but scoring goals is hard unless you have, you know, one of the elite players. So it's really interesting. You know, they've kind of dried up. We had, what, 4 games and 6 goals in 4 games.
Yep. And it did seem like a lot of those games when I was watching, it did look like the defenders were standing out. Like, you really do need a player that can just be creative and create something out of nothing for the most part. So it was really a bunch of defensive games. But let's talk about the game I want to talk about the most. My team that the fans chose, Sky Blue, versus the team that almost got me last week, Houston Dash, just played today. It actually was a really good game for Sky Blue, to be honest. I thought they played really well, but we get left with 1 point, and I think we're still sitting at the bottom. So we will start with you first, Jen. What did you think of the Sky Blue versus Dash game?
Good luck if you watched it, by the way. It just finished. I didn't watch it.
I think you need to become a Spirit fan, DJ. Nah, you know, Sky Blue, the one player that has, I think, consistently impressed me for Sky Blue, other than Maya Hayes. I've been very impressed with Maya Hayes. But other than that, Brittany Cameron, holy cow. She has impressed me just consistently this whole season. So I'm really disappointed that they're at the bottom because, you know, for her sake, I wish they were higher up on the table. But that penalty kick, and I mean, we were talking during the match, and I thought that penalty kick was going in until she actually hit the ball. And I was like, okay, that's safe. You know, they're good. But Sky Blue did play really well. Over on the Houston side, they looked a little bit disengaged until the very back side of that match, up until they scored that goal. They just looked very disengaged. They looked like they didn't even want to be there, the exception being Ella Masser. You know, I think Ella Masser was the only one I could really say had a great game. Other than that, I mean, it's Sky Blue, unfortunately. What's killing them is their defense. Other than Brittany Cameron, that back line is just not, it's letting too much through. So hopefully they can figure out a way to make that back line connect a little bit more and get that working by the end of the season.
Luke's your thoughts on Sky Blue this season?
Oh, this season, yeah, it seemed they've been over-reliant on Nadim, as I think we've talked about before, and really finding a team identity has been a struggle for them, I think. I didn't see the game today because I just didn't have a chance. I kind of skimmed fast-forward through some of the highlights. They looked livelier to me today than they have in past few games, which I think is a really good sign. The Dash, I think, looked from the little bit I saw quite disappointing. I thought they were more of an upswing, but getting a late equalizer is huge for them. So, you know, these are two teams that are sort of scrapping it out in middle to bottom half of the table. I don't see Sky Blue probably making the playoffs at this point unless something radical happens. Sorry, DJ.
It's all right. I won't get over it. Stephanie, what have you thought of Sky Blue and the Houston Dash?
I agree with Luke. Sky Blue came out looking a little peppier than I think they've been. And I would also agree with Jen that BCAM has been their standout. Nobody else except for Nadim has really, and possibly Friels, but she's kind of tapered off recently. Yeah, Cameron, I was looking at stats, and I thought they had carried over from last season because I was like, it's only been 8 games. This can't be right. But she already has 41 saves in 8 games. She is this season's Alyssa Nair. Like, hung out to dry by her defense, and just it creates great stats for her. But when you look behind the stats, you're like, oh, it's because the 4 people in front of her are like just shoveling shit on her plate left and right.
That is.
I'll commiserate with you because being a Breakers fan, I know what it's like to kind of dwell around the bottom of the table. So I know that feel. bro.
Yeah, it's rough, man. I'm not used to this whole bottom of the table. Like, I'm happy there's no relegation, or I'd be scared for my life right now. Like, I was looking for it. I'm like, oh, we're gonna drop down QPR or something. That's what I kept thinking. I was like, okay, wait a moment. It's NWSL. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. But yeah, it's rough. And like you said, Brittany Cameron, she had an amazing game. I thought we were gonna get 3 points because of how we came out. We had people flying forward. It wasn't just lob the ball to Nutty and Deem and let her take on 4 people. It was Friels was running up, Liddell was running up, just everyone was moving forward. Actually, it was like actual some type of attack. And then they scored that pinball goal, and I was like, oh, we're gonna lose this game. We have to hold on for dear life because last game against Houston, it was the same way where they went up. And then Houston just started attacking them. I think Houston ended up having about 21 or 22 shots that game. I think in just I don't know if it was just the second half. It might have been because when I looked at those stats, I was like, oh my goodness, there's no way they should have won. But it's amazing that Brittany Cameron's been saving us with those defenders. And Maya Hayes is an experiment back there. I mean, she did decent, but that's not her position. You know, I mean, for what she's been doing, a lot of people have been giving her praise, and I agree. But still, it's rough. I mean, I'm looking forward to that first overall pick next year. I hope it's like we get 4 players for 1 pick or something. You know, I don't know what to tell you, to be honest. But let's move on to the Boston Breakers versus FC Kansas City. This was a game that I guess we could say it was pretty interesting because Boston's so tough at home. So
Yeah, we are.
yeah. I wish I could say the same thing about Sky Blue, but nonetheless, Boston's so tough at home, they're always going to make for a good game. We'll start with you first, Stephanie. What have you thought of the Boston versus FC Kansas City game?
I'll be honest with you, I was pretty nervous. FCKC was coming off that loss, that rough loss. And so I was pretty sure they were going to come out firing on all cylinders, and they kind of didn't. I was around the press box, and I can hear the coaches yelling pretty well from where I am at, and Vlatko Andonovski he kept trying to get his players to go forward to get up. He wanted Shea Groom to hold the line tighter with Sarah Hagan and be up there and ready to go. And he wanted his players going in, like stepping first to the ball, getting that first and second ball. And it wasn't happening for FCKC as much as it was for Boston. I thought Boston's first 30 minutes were great. They were absolutely fantastic. If Boston had just one more credible scoring threat, because currently almost everything relies on Christy Mewis and Steph McCaffrey. Almost everything. If they have just one more. So whether that's Rafina, like, kind of getting back up to speed, because Durkin said she's not match fit for 90 minutes yet at NWSL level. She's coming from, like, Brazil. They don't really emphasize fitness. So if she can maybe come up to speed, or if one of our other strikers, I don't see it being Morgan Marlborough, and I don't see it being Kim Zura-Kay. I don't know who it is. But if we just had one more, I think Boston would really take off offensively.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Like you said with Marlborough, like, I haven't been really impressed with her too much, so I don't rate her too much. But if you're right, you're right. If you guys had one more player, it would relieve so much of the pressure off of Mewis and McCaffrey. All right, Luke, what have you thought of the Boston Breakers versus FC Kansas City?
Well, before I say that, I just got to give props to this wonderful soccer ball that kind of glows every time Stephanie's talking. It kind of makes me think of the movie Her with Scarlett Johansson. Like, I feel like Stephanie is like this computer talking about soccer, and it's just beautiful to watch. This just entity.
Perfect analysis, too, every time it's coming out of it. I'm like, yeah, I agree with all of that. Right on. Yeah.
I prefer you think of me as a disembodied radioactive soccer ball. That's fine.
That's I really liked Boston yesterday. I thought they were playing at some attractive, fast, creative, attacking football. Thought Barney really saved Casey on several occasions. Marlborough has kind of been a flop with every team she's been in so far in the league, which is too bad. I mean, she's this huge woman, 6 foot tall, right, almost?
6 foot exactly, yeah.
Kind of immobile, you know? Unless you get the ball right on top of her head or right on her foot, she's not going to really help you too much, it seems to me. McCaffrey, on the other hand, who everybody thought Boston were crazy for taking a gamble on with it in the draft, has turned into a complete star as far as I can see. She probably should have scored twice as many goals already than she has. I'm so pleased Christy Mewis is coming good. Love her left foot shot when she has time to hit it. It's a beautiful thing. Really disappointed in KC. You know, they have these players in their defense that should be among the best in the league, but they're just not putting it together this year, and I don't really see why things have changed that much. But yeah, I'm pleased for Boston. I think it's time they had a good run of luck in games.
And Jennifer, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with the other two. Mui definitely carries the team offensively, as we saw in this game. She had, I think what hurt for me was that she had so much time. I mean, she had the time to take the extra touches on that ball before she shot it, to get it and make sure it was going in. Like that was kind of painful. You know, if you're watching as a Kansas City fan, recognizing that they gave somebody like Mewis that much time to really make sure that ball was going in. But I seem to be on a keeper kick today. Jamie Kranich. Holy cow. Like, Timrak was going at her, Bogus was going at her, Groom was going at her. Those are huge players for KC, and she stopped every one of them. Yeah. So, you know, Jamie Kranich, for me, was a huge standout. And I kind of agree. Boston seemed to just connect better. They seemed to, you know, have up the speed of play a little bit. I'm surprised the score was only 1-0, because just from looking at it, Boston seemed to be steamrolling Kansas City. So.
Yeah, it felt like it had the feel of a 3-0 game. I kept thinking, I thought Boston was going to score a couple of goals on them. And it's just like FC Kansas City. I mean, they did, like you said, they had their shots, and Shea Groom and Timrek always, it seemed like they can make their opportunities and stuff, but it's just something about them. They just don't seem right or whatever, just attacking, going for it, and then the defense sometimes always lets up a goal, and then after, when they're trying to catch up, I remember someone was telling me earlier, when they're trying to play catch-up, you can forget about it usually. They just aren't a good team playing from behind. And I also, Hagen I haven't really seen her get really good opportunities at goal, and I'm guessing just the service right now for her hasn't been that good. And as you were saying, Luke, we're really seeing the value of attacking players in this league at the moment. We're really seeing how valuable it is to have someone like an A-Rod or a Holiday. If you put those two up there, and you'll get about 2 or 3 goals just easily. And kind of, I guess a lot of teams have taken that for, you know, just overlooked it and just kind of, I guess, you know, taking advantage of it. Oh yeah, you know, it's what we're used to. But I don't know. They better just try to hold strong FC Kansas City for a little while, because after they got to still have a ways to go without their top players, and if they keep slipping, it's going to be they might put themselves in too big of a hole to try to dig themselves out of. Looking forward, guys, for next week, we have the Spirit versus the Breakers, Flash versus the Chicago Red Stars, Dash versus the Thorns, and the Reign take on Sky Blue. All right, let's jump into the Boston Breakers spotlight. I'll worry about crying about that next week. As you know, I'll go through the history of the team, and then we'll jump in and talk about how the team's been doing this year, the players have been looking this year, so forth, so on. Breakers actually are a team with history, so that was pretty cool to read up on your team's history, Stephanie. I actually like that, because last week I did it on Houston, and I read probably 2 lines, and I was like, and that's that, so let's twiddle our thumbs and look at the air real quick. Breakers history. Here's a little breakdown for you guys. The formation of soccer was announced on September 4th, 2007, in which time it was also announced that a franchise had been awarded to Boston. The Boston Breakers franchise was officially unveiled on October 26, 2008. At the time, it was the only professional women's sports team in Massachusetts. The Breakers played their debut match in the inaugural season of women's professional soccer against FC Gold Pride in Santa Clara, California, losing 2-1. Its first home match was against St. Louis Atletica on April 11, 2009, in which the Breakers lost 2-0. Oh, jeez. The Breakers finished the season in 5th place with a 7-9-4 record. 2012, the Boston Breakers joined the Women's Premier Soccer League Elite. The team finished in 1st place, clinching the regular season title with an 11-3-0 record, the best season in its franchise's history. They lost 3-1 against the Chicago Red Stars in the WPSL Elite semifinals. 2003 Boston Breakers season is the club's 8th overall year of existence. fourth consecutive year and a fifth year as a member of National Women's Soccer, as a first year as a member of the NWSL. They played 22 games, finishing with 8 wins, 6 draws, and 8 losses. Now, can you tell us a little bit, Stephanie, about the Boston Armada? Because this was the fan group I was searching for. Like, I don't know anyone that's a fan of Boston, so let me go make a friend in Boston real quick. Can you tell us anything about their supporter group?
In the WPS, the supporters group for the Boston Breakers was the Riptide, but as happens with any group of people, they either got busy or their lives kind of took over. I know some of them got married and, just ate their time. So the Riptide kind of started to fade a little bit. Just nobody was logistically able to come to Breakers games anymore. It happens. So last year, got together with a friend and we started the Armada. It was kind of a fresh start. We got in touch with the front office, and they were actually pretty cool about giving us support, like tweeting about us, putting us on their webpage. This season, they've kind of worked with us to give us a little bit of help financially in the form of merchandise, like shirts and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's pretty small for now, although it has grown, I would say 100% from last season, which is not saying much when you're starting with a small number, like 4 or 5 people. But it's growing, and I think that there's been a decent amount of progress from last season to this one. Last season was about just existing. We would go to the games, we'd tailgate, we'd kind of tweet about it on social media, but we didn't really have any coherent plan in place, I would say. And then this season, things have moved forward. We have merchandise, scarves, shirts. We have more of an online presence. We have more of an in-game presence. And I think if the league survives, we've started to build up enough forward momentum that we can keep building on that and get enough people in that even as people leave, enough people are coming in so that the group stays alive.
Right on. Yeah, guys, and if you need anything, I will probably tweet out the @ of the Boston Armada, even post something on Facebook for some of you guys if you're interested in that. I suggest you to check it out because it's the league and these teams need as much support as they can get, so definitely check out the Boston Armada. Thank you, Stephanie, for that. Now let's just jump into the actual topics. So the team's overall performance last year, 16-2. They actually were 8th in the league.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's just it sucks. Jen,
Moving on.
Right? Jen, let's start with you first. What did you think of Boston's overall performance last year?
Yeah, I mean, they finished 8th in the league. That kind of says enough. It was just, I think a lot of it was just they had so many acquisitions like halfway through the season. Like all of a sudden in July, they decided they were just going to get like a crap ton of new players in, and I think that messes with any dynamic. So I think that was a big piece of it. Them not doing so hot in the beginning of the season and then trying to do better by pulling in a bunch of new players, but those players didn't really have time to connect and make things work. So they did end up at, second to last on the table. But they've obviously figured out what they were doing and pulled it together for this year. So, their performance last year was kind of a lesson for them, I think, which was good.
Yeah, I believe Boston right now is sitting 3rd in the table. Good for them. Luke, what did you think of Boston last year?
Well, they destroyed us in 2 games. Well, 1 game they destroyed us when Durkin decided to play his whole bench, and apparently his whole bench was better than our first team. So that was a good move. And then the second game they beat us in, I think, was the game where Alyssa and I, turned water into wine. So I didn't see anything wrong with them at all. I'm surprised they didn't have champions.
Stephanie, what did you think of Boston last year?
Quite frankly, those games against Portland were some of the only highlights that we had. Yeah, the first one, Jasmine Reeves, our rookie, scores a hat trick away at Portland. And yeah, the second one at home, Alyssa Nair did her usual thing and, made a case to be canonized as a saint by the Pope. So, And then we've kept it alive this year, although a much closer margin against Portland. Yeah, last season was rough. There was a lot going on, both on the field and off the field. I won't elaborate except to say, yeah, there was some internal strife in the team. You might have guessed at some of it, like when Lisa Devaney came in, she played a couple games, then she was out.
Yeah.
And then, some other stuff you might guess at, just some friction going on internally. And then Tom Durkin, I think last season was a huge learning curve for him. He's never coached at this level or, for a high-level women's team. And I had a staffer tell me, essentially, a huge part of it was him learning how to coach grown women. He just had no idea. So I think that learning curve is starting to taper off now. I'm still not a big fan of some of his decisions as a manager, like handling personalities and stuff like that. Like, if you ever hear him yelling on the field, you're like, man, you'd catch more flies with honey than vinegar. But it's much better now, I think. Season's young yet. So, yeah, last season, completely different from this season. The ghosts of last season, I think, if we have issues this season, they'll be completely different from last season's issues.
So you'll have new problems for this season. I guess that's
brand new. Yeah.
Right. That's always good. You don't want stuff to carry over. But yeah, I guess that would be a very hard issue for him actually learning how to coach grown women rather than what his other experiences were. The only really things I remember were those Portland games, to be honest with you, because I remember watching them and I was kind of shocked when he played that whole bench, and then you seen Hale them come off at the end, come on near the end, and it was like, well, it's already over, and they battered this team. I didn't expect them to batter Portland like that.
Nobody did.
Right? I thought it was going to go the other way around. I remember I was a casual watcher more so than anything last year, so when I saw it, I was like, wait, what? Is Portland bad all of a sudden? I was like, I thought they were pretty good this year.
You know what? The funny thing is, even in the game that we, on the surface, we battered them 6-3, which is a pretty impressive scoreline. But to be honest, the whole first half was, just back and forth. It was 3-3 at the half, if I remember rightly. And it was kind of both teams are having a go. We're just the second half, somehow Boston faded and we kept going. But very entertaining game.
Yeah, and some sets about Boston last year, they struggled really with the goals allowed, as you were saying about Nair. She didn't win goalkeeper of the year, but their defense was so rough they allowed the worst in the league 53 goals. They had 53 goals allowed, so that shows really how good she was, even to win that award through all of that. The loss of Heather O'Reilly and Leanne Sanderson was something big too. We could start with you first, Stephanie. How big of a loss was that?
I would say Leanne was a bigger loss than Heo, even though I love Heo to death. But right now Boston is struggling in that 10 spot, and Leanne was a huge playmaker who could also get forward and score goals. And if we had Leanne now, I think Boston would be doing pretty well. Her in combination with Mewis and McCaffrey would be a great offensive threat. So that hurt. Heo would actually be really nice because Boston's lacking a lot of service on the right side right now. And it also hurt because she's just been a big face for Boston the past couple of years. But her husband finished his degree at Harvard, and, what were you going to do? So.
Oh, he's graduating from Harvard. I like the guy already. Luke, what did you think of the loss of Hale and Leanne Sanderson? I mean, that Hale trade kind of threw me for a whirl. I wouldn't have expected it.
Well, I mean, I actually didn't know that about Harvard. I would have thought that they would get him a professorship so that, keep them in Boston. But that didn't work out. It wasn't so much trading Hale away, it was who they traded them to that surprised me. Kansas City seemed to me to be the last team that needed a player like Hale. So I was a little confused. But, Boston looks like it's got done pretty well out of the deal. I mean, didn't they get Coleman in return, or I can't remember?
Yeah, we got Coleman and Marlborough, and Coleman has proven to be
freaking awesome.
I know. She's proven to be like the greatest investment we ever made this season. Almost better than McCaffrey.
Around whom you can build your team, seriously. So I think they actually did really well out of that trade.
And now, Jen, what have you thought about the whole Leon Sanderson? We know your thoughts a little bit. For what I do from talking to you, I can see it in your face.
Yeah, you know where I'm going. Because you're missing a player that was lost from Boston.
What was
Yeah,
the name of that player, Jen? I don't remember.
you know, it's just some player that I mention every single week I'm on the show. Um, yeah, yeah, you know, and I am going to throw her in here because I think she was a big loss to Boston. So looking at all three of them, as opposed to just those two. You know, Heyo, I think in 45 appearances, Heyo had 14 goals. So she was a kind of key component up there. But I agree that out of those two, Leanne Sanderson was probably the biggest loss. She had less goals scored in a couple less appearances. I think in 41 she had 10 goals scored. But like Stephanie said, you know, she did play the number 10 well. So I think that was a bigger loss. But I think you know, Leanne Sanderson was, and I said this for Abby when it was Western New York Flash Week, that Leanne Sanderson and Joanna Lohman were huge losses to the team because they were faces for Boston for a while. You know, Joe Lohman, I see what she does for the Spirit every week. I see her going out to the squadron tailgates. I see her supporting the fans, bringing fans into the stadium. She kind of did the same thing for Boston. She was the support for the supporters. So in that respect, I think she was a big loss. You know, she had 35 appearances, and in those 35 appearances, she only scored 3 goals as opposed to the other 2 that were in double digits. So scoring-wise, she didn't really make that big of an impact, but she's also a central defending midfielder. So you can't really expect that out of her. But, you know, considering what happened with the 2 of them, it made sense. I'm still a little bit bitter about Boston waiving Joe Lohman, but I'm also happy because 3 days later we took her, and we happily took her, and now we have her. So, you know, I think, again, all 3 of them were probably a big loss for Boston. But I agree with Stephanie that Sanderson was a bigger loss than Heo.
I just somehow knew. Oh, what did you want to say, Stephanie? Go ahead.
Just a note about Joe. Like, the thing that I get from her, and obviously I haven't followed her as much this season now that she's down in D.C., is that she seems much happier there. Obviously, you know, things imploded in Boston. So I get the sense that she's happier in D.C., which kind of contributed to maybe the parting was not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, she was born and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland. She's always seen this place as home. She played for the DC United Women, so I mean, this is home for her, and it's nice to see her back here. And she did an interview a couple of weeks ago where she said, you know, that someone asked her, the interviewer asked her, you know, what do you feel being back in DC? And she said it best. She said, you know, the smile on my face says everything. So I completely agree with you, Stephanie, that, you know, it's good to see her here, and it's good to see her happy and playing a game like she did yesterday. You know, that's what really is exciting for us as fans of particular players and of a particular team.
Oh yeah, and what I was going to say was I somehow knew that Joanne Lohman would get thrown into the Boston Breakers spotlight, so I was prepared for that. That's why it was perfect for Jen to be on this episode for that. Nonetheless, at least she's down there in the Spirit, so you get to enjoy her while all the Boston fans will miss her. I'm guessing you guys miss her, right, Steph?
The work she did for the team, definitely. Positionally, I think actually it worked out. It worked out. That box that Durkin is using defensively with the 2 center backs and the 2 defensive mids sitting in front, it's kind of working out pretty well for us. So she was a big booster. She was a great personality to have, but in the end, I think it worked out well for both parties.
That's always good for a trade. Let's go back to you, Jen. Who are some players that are sending out this year for Boston?
Yeah, I definitely mentioned one earlier in Kranich.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kranich has just been phenomenal. She's had a huge opportunity to shine with Nair being away at the World Cup. You know, Nair's a brick wall. she's insane. But I think Kranich has had a real opportunity to kind of learn and grow and show herself a little bit more with Alyssa Nair missing right now. Steph McCaffrey, holy crap. She's been phenomenal. Like Luke said earlier, she's kind of become a superstar. And nobody really expected that. But she's become a crucial point of that team. And, of course, Mui. Mewis has been another great asset to this team. She's kind of, like I said earlier, kind of carried the team a little bit offensively, for sure. So those would be probably my top three standouts.
Luke?
Well, I already said Casey Coleman, who I have been a huge fan of last year and this year. I think Julie King is playing really, really well. I think it's actually benefited them that Kat Whitehill has retired, having missed some games already this year with injury and other things. But I felt like, the first game of the season against the Thorns, Whitehill was beaten twice by Ali Long on sort of similar plays, where she kind of just pushed the ball past and ran past her. And Whitehill used to be such a kind of smothering central defender. I felt like she clearly lost some pace, and it was time for her to leave, even though I'm a huge fan of hers. So Boston now looks really organized in defense compared to last year, of course, which was we've already talked about that. But I'm going to give some props to the Boston defense for really getting it together this year.
That was my choice, Julie King. Every game I've watched of her, she looked really good, and I thought she was a player. I think I mentioned her last week a bit too. Just one of those players. It seems like she's always breaking up play at the right time or cutting off passes. She looked like she reads the game very well, so I really enjoyed watching her. It seems like a lot of defenders I've been enjoying at this point in the year more than any ends up there, and was the Western New York Flash, a little bit of lapel, but down in FC Kansas City. Stephanie, what have you thought of? Well, who are some players standing out this year for Boston?
I'll tell you what the key is for Boston, and I'm not giving away any trade secrets because you can use your eyeballs to see, but it's that box, that defensive box in front of the goal with Julie King, Cassie Coleman, Katie Schepfer, and Amy Barzak. Those four players working together. So you saw in the last game, Julie King and Cassie Coleman were nuts. They went wild attacking center back. It felt like one of them was always taking a run up the middle, up into the attacking third. I was like, why are you all the way up here? Mm-hmm. And the reason they can do that is because Schepfer and Barzak have been trained to drop in and cover really well, and they just work tightly as a unit. So those four are really great. And, of course, Mewis. McCaffrey, the thing is, so I'm in Boston, and I follow Boston College. And if you watched Boston College, you wouldn't be that surprised by McCaffrey taking off. Maybe a little bit because she showed well when she was playing for BC, especially when she had Christy Mewis with her. And then after Mewis graduated, her production dropped off a little bit. But yeah, if you saw her play at BC, you'd be like, okay, I understand now why Boston wanted her so badly, between that and the homegrown factor. So I'm not super surprised she's taking off. I'm a little surprised she's taking off this much. She's like, I would say in any given game, she's responsible for 40-50% of the attacking pressure that the team puts on. Whether it's getting into scoring position, or more often than not these days, it's she's the one creating service, which I think is actually really a bummer, because she should be the finisher. She shouldn't have to be taking on this burden of, taking it down and then looking up for someone else to finish, because who else is there?
Right. And as you said with her, it seems like every time she gets the ball, she's setting up the assist for someone, give them a nice little easy one, or she's going to look to take it herself. So, I mean, it's a lot of pressure been heaped on her, and I wouldn't have expected that for a rookie, but really the rookie's been the star of the team so far, and everyone else, other attackers can benefit from it because everyone's going to keep eyes on her every time she gets it, and she always makes a good run and pushes it for them too, so she's been really amazing to watch.
The one thing McCaffrey needs to work on is she loves to go 1v1. She friggin' loves it. But sometimes she takes one too many touches. She's a little too selfish. If she can start to learn the difference between when to be selfish and when to be a rock star, then she'll really be a threat.
Now, Nice, nice. Well, I wish I would have saw her at Boston College now because sounds like she was dominant there too. For the most part.
Yeah,
Um,
she was.
Nice. New players. I guess we talked about a couple new players. Ed Coleman was one that I really picked, but also there was one that I was expecting to do a little bit more that really hasn't, and it was also Marlboro, as we were saying. She's so big. I kept thinking that would be a perfect person to just play crosses into, probably help out McCaffrey, as McCaffrey could be the pace while she's more of the bigger target woman. It just seems like he's not really coming off for her. I think she only has one goal at this point in the season. Who are some new players that have been doing well so far this year for Boston, Stephanie?
We had a decent draft, and I was watching them preseason. I thought Jamia Fields would end up with us. She's from Florida State, and now she's at Western New York, I want to say. But we ended up picking Stephanie Verdoya, who is not seeing a lot of minutes, and I think it's because Durkin is saying she's not ready yet, which is kind of disheartening. We're this far into the season, and she already had all the preseason. She's supposed to be a good attacking mid option for us, and in preseason she was doing a lot of set pieces too. So she's got a good touch, but she's not really. It just feels like she's not ready yet. The other new player I really think to watch now is Lauren Lazo. She's a newest signing for the Breakers. She was absent last game. She's graduating from Princeton. I don't know, priorities, whatever.
What are you doing, Lazo?
But, yeah, she's filling in on the wing for the Breakers, and if she can learn how to pick her moments between having to be a lockdown defender and getting up and providing service, that's the service we need on the right. She'll fill in a huge gap for the Breakers, and if she can learn to do that, then the offensive possibilities multiply at least twice over.
Jen, some new players for Boston we should look forward to, or have been playing well so far?
Yeah, we keep going back to her, but Casey Coleman is the biggie for me. Boston, watching them, every game they play, they don't win by a big margin, but they win. And that says, offensively, they might be lacking a little bit, but you owe matches like that to your defense because you can score that one goal and then trust your defense to hold you. And I feel like a lot of that maybe comes from Casey Coleman and from that back line being able to communicate and being able to really, be that first defense for Jamie Kranich so that if something does come through to her, she's at least ready for it. She can take care of it, whatever. But I think Casey Coleman being able to fit her into that back line like that, it's huge.
And I'm guessing, Luke, for you it'll be Coleman as well, or do you have any other new players you think we should look out for?
No, I mean I'm not as familiar with Boston as obviously Stephanie and Jenna, but I was a bit disappointed. It was the opening game of the season. I was a little disappointed with the Brazilians, who I thought I could maybe see a little more flair from, but that was the opening game and they probably just arrived. The Lazo, what Stephanie was talking about, is very interesting. I mean, I'm fascinated that Princeton is producing these high-quality football players. I mean, Diane Matheson is, I guess, the most famous example of a Princeton grad, and then we have another one. So, completely unexpected. But I actually have a question for Stephanie, which is about the new stadium. Well, do people like it? How is it working out?
I think it's better for the team. They did pay a decent chunk of money for that stadium, but it's better than Harvard. I know the Coliseum, the big concrete one, it maybe has more of a social, cultural cachet, but smaller venues better. I think it costs less. It takes a little getting used to. If you're sitting on the end line, there's netting up to prevent people from getting nailed in the face. But it does interfere a little bit watching from the end lines. I've been told, though, once you get used to it, it's not so terrible. And, of course, if you're sitting center in the bleachers, as you can see on the web streams, that's really close into the field. The turf is not terrible. It's Harvard, so you would expect the turf to at least not be concrete.
Actually, I have a question for you, Stephanie, real quick. It was what Luke was mentioning about the Brazilians. What was your guys' expectation in Boston when the Brazilians came in?
Okay, I'll be really honest with you. We got some Brazilians, and then two of them got called up to their national team. So the Brazilians we ended up with weren't even on national team radar. They were like kind of either fringe or not really, you know, not really a part of the pool.
Right.
They did get called up recently, but in Bia's case, it was because there were like 4 injuries for players in her position. And then Hoffa had the better chance of looking, but she's still, if she can't play 90 minutes in an NWSL pace, then she's not going to do well at a World Cup.
Right. I got you. Yeah,
So,
that's very true.
yeah, I didn't expect them to make the roster, and I honestly didn't super expect much of any of them at the beginning of the season either. Uh, Seeing them play in preseason, I didn't really get a feel for them because preseason means nothing. You play a couple college teams or like a local club, it doesn't mean a thing. And I think at the start of the season, their performance kind of bore that out. It was like, well, they're okay, but in the beginning, Hafina, she still couldn't play 90. Durkin could only use her 45 minutes at a time, and now he can still only use her for about 70 minutes at a time, which is obviously improvement, but it's still not. It would have been nice to have a Leanne Sanderson style player who could come in from the beginning of the season. But I think now that they're up to speed, and all the teams are away for the World Cup, and Boston's like hell bent on grabbing up whatever points they can before shit gets real. I think it would be fair to expect more of them, and I think they might produce. I think Rafina at least might produce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just kept thinking just because everyone heard the whole thing that they were Brazilian. You know, sometimes people hear from a certain country, everyone gets ooh and owie, that they were like, oh, these players are going to come in and just tear up the league, or they're going to help Boston so much. But I had never heard of them before, so I couldn't really give an opinion on them. I just wanted to know what you guys who knew more about Boston thought or have seen so far about with them. All right, guys. Let's talk about some players that we're expecting to continue to have a great season or have been doing well so far. We will go to you first, Luke.
Or is this a separate question?
Yeah, it is kind
you know, I tend to see things in a straight line. You know, if I don't see any dropping off that's going to happen with some of these great players. You know, certainly with players like McCaffrey and Christy Mewis who have everything to prove, and the Olympics are coming up next year. You know, they want to put on a great show this season, and especially Mewis, who's already been in the frame. You know, you want to keep those guys want to keep playing well. I don't know who else might be just off the radar, who's going to be on the radar. I think we've covered pretty much everybody, if we're just talking about Boston still.
Yeah, don't worry, it's still Boston. You the same, Jim, for the most part?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I mean, we've kind of talked about the entire roster top to bottom by this point, so I agree with Luke. I don't really see anybody dropping off. I think as the season progresses, this team's just going to get better, and I hate to say that because they are right freaking behind us on the table right now. But I think they're going to get better. They're going to connect a little bit more. You know, we mentioned players like Lazo maybe getting in, filling in what little gap Boston does have. They're definitely going to be a force.
And I guess for you, Jim, we could start with the outlook for Boston. Where do you see this team ending the season?
I'm gonna get in trouble with this. I got in trouble with the Flash fans, man. No, to be honest, I think they're really big contenders for a playoff spot. I see them in the top 3. You know, I think who our top 3 are now are going to be continuously fighting for those top 3 spots. I can't really say who's going to come in 1, 2, and 3, but I think the 3 we have up there now are just going to keep fighting for those spots. They might interchange a little bit, but I see Boston in the top 3.
Luke?
I'm not as convinced. I really like the way they are now. I think they're going to get less of a boost after the World Cup as some of the other teams. I think, you know, Kansas City are going to get a huge jolt. I think the Reign will, even though it's relatively few players, they're going to get Solo and Pino back. I think the Thorns maybe will play a decent game, finally, maybe. So I don't know. Spirit are going to get some good players back too. Chicago are going to get some good players back too. I think Chicago and the Spirit are going to be in the top 4, and their other 2 places are kind of up for grabs. That's my sense of it.
And Stephanie, tell us what do you think your Boston Breakers will do, or how they will end the season better yet.
Honestly, I could have answered this question a lot better after they play the Spirit, because they're very aware that they do well at home, but so far they haven't done anything away. They haven't shown that they can go on the road and adapt to their opponents while they're away. They talk about how they're so strong at home because it's their comfort zone. And it's like, if you want to win this league, you got to be able to go on the road and take some points. So that being said, I think during the World Cup, if they get as many points as they can, home and away, then they'll end up with a playoff spot. Will they win? But yes, I could see them contending for a playoff spot if they can manage to win on the road.
No.
Sorry, Stephanie.
I guess I can understand that with Boston at this point. To start the season, I really wasn't looking at them as a team that would actually be fighting for a playoff spot. But they continue to hold serve at home, and then they go on the road and steal some points. Who knows what's going to happen? The one thing I'm concerned about is what Luke said, to be honest. How certain teams are going to get those extra boosts during or after the World Cup. And depending on when their best players lose, as sad as that may sound, whenever their best players lose out or whatever and come home, the next team's going to be a winner, so to speak, because they'll have a lot of their better players. With Boston, even when the better players do come, it's not like I don't think what players are they getting out. Do they have listen there? Well, that's a good one, right? You can't beat that. But a lot of players getting their attacking players back, so a lot of goals scored. Other than this week, which is kind of a dead week for offense. I don't think we're going to have a lot of those once a lot of those players come back because they'll still be in pretty good form. Hopefully, most of them. But I see Boston probably they're going to be fighting within that 5 to 7 range. I think that'd be good for them. And if they have a real good season, they'll slip into top 4, which I never thought I'd be saying to start the year that Boston would slip into that top 4. So that 5 to 7 range, I think would be pretty good for Boston. Right now, I'm just checking for notes. Checking for questions. While I do this, I guess we can do the usual rants. We're going to start with Jen because she said she was prepared for this rant moment. Go on. What's pissing you off, Jennifer?
I already got my rant out. I'm good. We talked about Joanna Lohman getting away from Boston. So I mean, it's all good. Like Stephanie said, she's happier with us because it's her home here, and everything worked out for both teams. So it's all good. Had she not been picked up by the Spirit, that would be my rant at the moment. I'd be pissed off, but we're good. So.
Oh, so you don't have any bitter feelings towards her or anything? You feel all happy about that? That's good to hear then. Luke, what's been pissing you off lately?
Hey, I wasn't prepared for a rant. I don't see it on the agenda at all. But no, I'm kidding. I've had several rants already. I've already ranted about press. I ranted about Paul Riley. I could definitely rant some more things. I'm freaking pissed off that Alex Morgan is still not 100% recovered, but I just read a thing while we were talking saying that she's guaranteeing that she'll be ready. I don't know what that means anymore. I think there's so much PR smokescreen around her, who I love as a player, but all the extracurricular activity sometimes gets a little much. So that's annoying. I do want to give a shout out to Sid LaRue, who I think we didn't mention at all in the context of yesterday. I think she was one of the players who really had a decent game yesterday. I felt like she really put a lot of work in and covered a lot of ground and created the few chances or helped with the few chances that the US had. So other than that, Thorns suck right now, but what can you do?
Well, at
least CJ's fault.
Yeah, at least you're not at the bottom of the league, but blame me for it, I guess. Not yet. Blame the red hat. Stephanie, anything that's been getting on your nerves lately? Any bad food you got or something that you were mad at some fast food place or something like that?
I'll tell you what I'm mad at today,
Go
which
for it.
was Fox Sports published a little piece on players who could mess up games for the United States, and it was a decent list of 10 players. Number 6, they list Louisa Nassib, which, okay, I would have picked maybe Gaëtan Tenet or something from France.
Right.
And the first sentence for Louisa Nassib says, "Forget that this native of Marseille looks like Jennifer Lopez and is as cool as any movie or rock star on the planet." And I was like, what? What? You were doing so well, Fox, and then this. Like, why was this necessary? Who wrote this? Like, did you just give this to some bro staffer who couldn't come up with anything else to say about her?
Someone they just hired from TMZ, presumably.
It was like, and it was stunning. The rest of the player profiles are fine, but I guess they picked Nassib because she's got the face of an angel. I don't know.
Well, you
So,
know,
yeah.
they call her the Zinedine of the women's team, right? So I thought
Yeah, they call her the female Zinedine Zidane. So
I thought you were going to go in those lines, but are you kidding me? That's ridiculous.
it's pretty outrageous considering they're the ones who are broadcasting the World Cup this summer. So I thought that was out of line. It was bang out of order.
Yeah, I guess I got a good one then. You all, we're gonna probably. I wasn't going to bring this up for us to all talk about it. I mean, all the FIFA stuff, but I guess we can talk about that in all those other World Cup shows we got. But you know how they're making the whole FIFA where they're bringing the women's teams on and all that, and everyone was excited about it, right? Well, I guess not everyone was excited. Did you get see some of those comments people were leaving? It was almost as if we were back in the 1950s or 40s, or if people start making all the kitchen jokes stuff. And I guess, you know, when you're on the internet, everyone sometimes says stuff and they think it's funny even though it's not, or they feel like they can be bold and say those things it's not. But I was so excited for it, and I didn't think anything of it. And then I saw those jokes. I was like, wow, these people are really this backwards in the head, or they're saying this to sound funny or cool when it's not that cool at all. I mean, these should be. Some people were saying you shouldn't even have them in the game. I was like, this is a great thing, because when I talked to everyone, it was like all these girls and stuff were saying, oh, I'm going to buy the game now and stuff. I'm like, look, you just open the audience FIFA to so many more people now who are going to play your game by doing this, even if it is just a little small section, because of what it's going to be. It sounds like you won't get you're only playing the national team, so you only can do so much with that. But that was so good or whatever that they did do that, because now, like I said, they're going to probably have so many people just buying Xboxes and stuff just to play that, or just to play those little few teams as much as they want. And it'll bring in younger girls and stuff, and maybe they can grow it from there. But just some of those comments people were leaving was just absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. I was like, is this a joke, or are you saying this to sound funny? And I saw a lot of it on my timeline, because my timeline's full of like football fans and then like the WoSo fans, the WoFo fans and WoSo fans that I call them sometimes, and people were just going off. I wanted to say something, but I was like, no, I'll just save it to come on here and say it. But I don't know. It was good to see that they did bring them in. But other than that, that's everything we have, guys. We had one question. Someone was asking about some article with Abby, and I'm like, which one? There's a ton we could argue about with that. Thank you, Stephanie, for being on. We appreciate it. This was a longer show than expected, but it had to be just because it was our last spotlight, and the World Cup has made everything crazy for us. Like, we never would have U.S. Women's National Team, NWSL, and Breakers spotlights. Thank you, Jen, for being back on. You guys will get to see Jen and Luke next week on next Sunday. We do our World Cup opener. Yay! And I'm going to tell you the contest we're going to have for the World Cup. It's going to be a good one. You're going to win something for free. Stephanie, you want to say anything before you go away? We appreciate you having you on. Hopefully I could be a third drunk fan sometimes on your little podcast. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be broadcasting from Vancouver, so it might be a while. Luke, man, it's a rough draw you guys got there. Paul Riley out? I don't know.
Invite me on your show in Vancouver. I'm going to be there for the Nigeria game.
Okay, we'll talk to Gab about it.
Excellent.
Nice, and there we go. You're watching hookups happen on here like that. Now Luke's about to pop up on there. That's how we do something off the post. I'm your host, DJ Redcap, Brett Durst, and we are out. See us next week. Well, Wednesday and then Sunday. Bye-bye.